So it's January, and I really like to take some time in January to kind of think about and plan the rhythms and routines of our lives. So today I'm going to share a little bit about what that looks like in a practical way here at Born for Homeschool. Hi, welcome to Born for Homeschool. My name is Rachel Bourne. I'm the wife of Daniel, and we have 4 kiddos, ages 2 through 10, and I homeschool the oldest 3. So we have a kindergartner, a 2nd grader, and a 5th grader this year. And here we are in January, and so I love to take time in January to think about and plan some of the rhythms and routines of our lives, not just homeschool, but also house routines, family routines. And so this year, I get to look at these things from a new perspective, because if you watched my latest video, I just shared the announcement that I am working through The Life-Giving Home by Sally and Sarah Clarkson. And this book I'm working through with a group of other women in a 2022 Life-Giving Home Challenge. So I'm really excited to be examining our rhythms and routines and rituals from a new perspective this year. So there are several areas of routines, and some of the ones I wanted to talk with you about today are our devotional routine, our mealtime routine, our household routine, and then our morning and evening routine. And then I also wanted to talk about our homeschool routine, because I wanted to share with you today about how we are implementing these new habits in our homeschool routine so that we create this routine that better serves our family. So the first routine that I decided that I wanted to really think about and plan was our devotional routine. In the book, The Life-Giving Home, Sally Clarkson makes this statement about a devotional routine. She says, "It is the single most important and influential practice of life and has given me strength, wisdom, a sense of God's truth and direction, and a thankful heart." In my own life, I have said many years, yes, spending time in God's Word is very important. It's important to me personally. It's important that I teach that to my kids, that I model that for my children. And yet, as I look back over the habits and routines of my life, this past year, I have not done a good job of having the routine of being in God's Word. And it's super easy for me to do that when I get up early and I have all this extra time before my kids wake up. But it's much harder the days that I'm not getting up early to make sure that I have a routine, a habit of investing my time in God's Word. So I sat down and I started writing out, okay, so what is my plan for spending time in God's Word this year personally? What is my plan for doing that with my children? What does that look like as far as our family devotions? My husband used to do family devotions every morning after breakfast time, and he is now away at work for 4 mornings of the week. And so I have to reassess, okay, what is that going to look like now for our family devotions? And is this really important right now? What other things keep crowding this out? And if I'm saying that this is important, how am I actually going to live that? Then next, I wanted to look at our mealtime routines. And my daughters have been really good about helping out when asked, but I wanted to have something in place so that I didn't have to constantly ask different people to do different things. Just knowing that there's an expectation and what that expectation is really helpful. So sitting down and examining who was doing what and when would be an appropriate time for them to do that was really helpful. To say, okay, Christiana, you're responsible for setting the table for this meal, or you're responsible for making sure breakfast happens at this time. And just setting those expectations and then guiding them, saying, okay, these are the meals that we can have for breakfast. Like, what do you want to fix? And how can I help you to fix that? Things like that to help them create these habits that will benefit our family, that will serve them as they serve others. So that has been really key. Also, I am not a natural meal planner. Meal planning is not the easiest thing for me. It takes a lot of work, a lot of mental energy, and just, energy period. So it doesn't come easy to me, but having a meal plan makes the whole evening go so much better. And so I have been really intentional this month to sit down and write out a meal plan, and that helps to simplify our mealtime routine. So next I wanted to look at our household routines. And because of our home renovation, everything from our entryway and our kitchen and our laundry space is now in other parts of our home or in our garage. And so our house is feeling a little bit chaotic right now. And in order to reduce that feeling of chaos and to reclaim a little bit of the calm, it has been really important for me to look at our household tasks in small pieces and small bite-sized things that I can do. I can still clean out the fridge. I can still vacuum the entryway. Things like that. It's helpful for me to look at these small tasks and just focus on that small thing to keep our house in good working order and to keep it clean and tidy. And so I have found this great planner for me this year. The Passionate Penny Pincher produces a planner. This is the 2022 home planner, and it's just daily checklists for your home, family, and finances. And this has been a game changer for me. I am a lists person, and so this works really well for me. Someone else has thought of all the things to do. This planner is just full of household tasks that need to be done. And it has been so helpful. I have absolutely loved it. It has really met a need for me in my life for this year. So I'm really grateful to have found that tool for our household routine. So next I want to talk about our morning routine and our evening routine. And our morning routines, I have mine separately in my planner, in the household planner, but also my girls' I created a routine for them at the beginning of summer, I think, and I laminated it, and it has been really helpful for them to have a checklist of things to work through for the morning. And so just by taking some time to revisit, okay, this is the routine for the morning and this is what the expectation is, has been really good to just establish those expectations and then to measure what they're doing according to what has already been set forth. In her book, Sally Clarkson talks about the routine of a morning blessing is what she calls it. And I'm familiar with this idea from, I believe it's Gretchen Rubin's book, The Happiness Project, where she talks about warm greetings and farewells. And that is something that has really stuck with me since reading her book. And I have thought about how important it is to greet those we love first thing in the morning with joy and enthusiasm. However, as I've been thinking about the last few weeks and months and the ruts and habits that I've kind of gotten into, one of the habits is that after devotions in the morning, when my kids are all asleep and my husband has gone to work, I then will work in the morning. And so I have the computer out usually, and I'm either working on articles or going through a class, or something that I'm working on is usually on the computer. And so when my kids come down, it's almost this mixture of like, oh, my time is up. Like, time for me to put this stuff away. And so it's kind of like this, okay, guess it's time to start the day. And I recognize that that is not the feeling that I want to have for that moment. And that is not how I want my kids to be greeted when they're first awake for the day. So the last several weeks, as I have been reminded about the warm greeting from reading Sally's chapter, I have really been intentional to greet my children with enthusiasm and love and warmth. And it has totally changed my heart. And I think it's really wonderful to wake up and be greeted with such love and care and honor whenever they first come down. So I think that that's been something that's really important. And it's such a small thing, but I think that it's really having a big impact. So that's what we've been doing now for our morning routine. And for our evening routine, it was really good for me just to sit down and to go over our evening routine with the kids, to remind them of the expectation of when showers are happening and baths and teeth brushed and PJs on. If there's extra time in between that and our prayer time as a family, then they could do some reading on their own. And otherwise, then it's just prayer time all together in the boys' room and then bedtime. and just reminding them of our routine and just refreshing and going over this is what we do, saying it out loud even though we do it every day. It just reminds them of how important it is to all be on the same page. And the final area that I wanted to look at is our homeschool routine. And in our homeschool routine, there were some things that I wanted to change. And if you watched my January homeschool reset, then you'll know that I kind of spent some time just evaluating what are some things that I wanted to tweak or change for this coming year. And now that I had those written out and listed at what I wanted to do differently, then it was time to figure out, how am I going to implement this? What habits am I going to create so that we get into this routine and rhythm and make it our own? So I kind of went back to the book Atomic Habits that I read last year. It's written by James Clear. It's an excellent book. And I just kind of went through the steps of creating a new habit and figured out what that would look like for our new habit. One of the things that I wanted to change was two of the things. I wanted to get our history and our science done in the mornings. And this is something that hadn't been happening. And if it had been happening, it was definitely like hit and miss. Like we would do a day, we wouldn't do a day, 2 weeks later, we'd do another day. And so I wanted to make this into a habit. And so visiting the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, I thought through, how am I going to create habits that will make it into a routine and a rhythm for our homeschool? So I went through the steps that James talks about in his book, and the 4 things that you do to create a new habit is to make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and then make it satisfying. And so I thought through and I planned out how that would look for our homeschool. So the first thing James Clear talks about in creating a new habit is to make it obvious. And so this is establishing a time and place for this to happen. It is establishing visual cues and also creating an optimal environment. And so that looked like, for me, deciding, okay, time and place, when are we anchoring these subjects? Like, how are we going to put this into our morning, and what does that look like? And so figuring all of that out and just planning all of that took some time to think through, when is this going to happen? When is the best time for this? And then visual cues, it was me digging through the piles and pulling out the manuals and the workbooks and preparing that and getting that ready to go. And then optimal environment was creating our space in our homeschool room, because everything had gotten piled up and it was a mess, and the space just needed to be tidied and clean. And so once it was tidied and clean, it felt like we had space, the margin, to add these new things. So the next thing James Clear talks about is making this habit attractive, whether that's reframing association or upping your anticipation of reward. Whatever that is, you make this thing attractive. And so how was I going to do that with our history and science? And it could be something as simple as setting out the ingredients for our science experiment, or pulling out the history book and opening it. Like, those things, the beautiful pictures made you want to look at it, made you want to read it. And so those are very simple actions to make it attractive. And the next thing he talks about is making it easy. And so this is focusing on the fact that it's not like chunks of time doing this habit is not really what counts. It's the consistent doing of the habit. It's the consistency. It's just showing up for the habit. So the first day that we were doing our history and science, I said, 5 minutes. We just have to open this book and read it for 5 minutes, and that's it. I'll check off the box. We did history for the day, or we did science for the day. And what it turned out to be is that we opened up the lesson and we read it and we talked about it and we discussed it and we talked about the timeline of it. And later on, we had more discussion about it. Even though you're only committing to these 5 minutes and it was just easy to do, the expectation was easy, it becomes something more than that. And that's something that I've really been learning in my life, that 5 minutes matters choosing to do something for just 5 minutes will really transform what you can actually get done. So in making something easy, you just focus on the action and practicing it. So the fourth thing that James Clear talks about in creating a new habit is to make it satisfying. And this is with an immediate reward or tracking progress and never miss twice. And that's something that Gretchen Rubin talks about also, is not missing twice. So when I'm planning out our school, and there are certain days that we won't be doing school and kind of in the middle of the week, so really odd times because of my husband's work schedule and our school schedule. And so thinking through how we're going to do this almost every day. And no, it's not going to be every day. It's not going to be perfect, but going so that we don't miss several days in a row is going to help us to establish this new habit. It's going to help us to stay in this routine and to get into this routine. And so those are all ways that I am looking at establishing the habit of adding these other subjects into our school in a consistent way every day. And so one of the things that I'm really excited about is in tracking progress, I am planning to create an Instagram page just for our history and just for our science. I think it's going to be a really fun way to track our progress for those subjects this year. So these are all the practical rubber meets the road sort of ways that I am looking to establish these habits that will strengthen our routines and rhythms that we want to create here in our homeschool. So if you have any thoughts or comments, if you have any ways that you have found are really helpful to help you establish new habits, especially in your homeschool, please leave a comment below. I am really looking for ways to make this stick. So let me know if you have any ideas. I am so excited to be announcing the winner of the giveaway that I did in my last video. So the winner of the giveaway, the book, the journal, and the pens is Madison Ward. Thank you to those who commented to enter the giveaway. I'm so excited that I was able to do that this last week. Congratulations to the winner, and I look forward to seeing you in